I can, but actually, I'll tell you a little secret. When I practice cases, I'll actually, let me show you. Here's how I practice cases. I go to the bookstore. By far, Business Week is the best because they're short and they tend to have data. Okay, things like Fortune, they tend to be a little more conceptual. Portfolio, it's a new magazine, came out a couple months ago. Really interesting too. I think it has a lot of data. I haven't gone through this particular issue, and I got the China one from Fortune. So I could do the case, but there's no more data. The article is short. So LeBron James, he's sort of like the rising star in the NBA, and they showed these games in China, and there's like 100 million viewers per game. Okay. So it's like staggering, right? Because I'm pretty sure not, 40% of America probably wasn't watching those games. So that's where I get my ideas from. I'll talk about practicing later. But I tend to sort of make these things up when I'm practicing, just to go through the process. One thing you will find that's a little different. So the examples I'm giving, I tend to sort of make them up a little bit. Okay? In a real case, you will have hard data. Okay? You will have hard data. And so maybe I would say 30% of the time the person's making it up, 70% of the time there is a lot of hard data. So you want to get it, write it down, think critically about it. And it's not conceptual at all. So here I'm making numbers up, and so sometimes they're logically inconsistent. So that's sort of a risk of that, which is fine. But in real case, they're not logically inconsistent. They're very precise. It's very deliberate, and so you should be aware of that. So I'll be happy to do the MBA case. Let's see. Let me make sure. Let me just make sure I have all my notes here. Okay, let's do the MBA win. So actually, let me skip ahead a little bit. When you're practicing, so I was going to talk about this at the end, but since it's sort of relevant, when you're practicing, particularly with somebody else, you can practice the opening and the close by yourself. Okay, so you open up Business Week, look at the first article. So I'll just look at the table of contents, and I'll just rattle them off. Let's see. Okay, United Airlines is looking to merge. Okay, what kind of framework is that? Mergers and acquisitions, right? Okay. There's a debate in the marketplace on the internet with ISPs around differential internet speeds, so bandwidth speeds, depending on levels of service for the customer. So high-paying customers get faster deliverability on their internet, and lower ones don't. What should Comcast do? That's much more a business situation, regulatory issue. Let's see, another one. So actually, let me explain that one. What it is sort of like if I'm a big company paying more, my emails get delivered instantly, but if you pay less, your emails take a day or two. That's what that is. So a lot of people hate that. It's an industry regulatory thing. So that's what that is. Okay, there's a new growth market in financing medical bills. So you go to the doctor, you don't have insurance, you have a $20,000 bill, but you only make $15,000 a year, you have no insurance. Now what hospitals are doing, according to the article in one of these magazines, they're taking, rather than having it in-house, they're selling the debt to these professional finance companies. Okay, so like Beneficial Household Finance. So if you're working for American Express, should you enter the medical financing business? That's the business situation framework, right? Okay. So this is literally what I did. So I just sit there every week. I go through the table of contents. Oh, interesting article. Which framework would I use? Okay, next one. Oh, interesting. Which article would I use? That's an interesting article. Which framework would I use? And I would just do that sort of, I know, it's sort of like. It's impressive. Is it? Oh, I don't know. I just thought I was sort of embarrassed, actually. So I just sit there in the coffee shop and just start reading the paper. And actually, the other guy I taught, he did the same thing. I mean, Business Week, if you're, how many of you come prior to business school, did not really have a broad business background? Okay, so they're very narrowly focused, okay? Business Week, honestly, it's a great magazine for understanding like lingo. So one of the things I did when I was practicing was, I'd write down terminology I didn't understand. Because I was doing this when I was like 19, 20, right? So I didn't understand all of business. And so every time there was a word like economies of scale, like, what's that? I mean, I had that in Econ 101. I go look up the note. Increasing returns of scale, what's that? Price elasticity, what the heck does that mean? Oh, they're sensitive to prices. And so I sort of have this dictionary for like a page, and I just start jotting them all down. And if you don't have a broad background in business, Business Week tends to touch on all these issues. So you get familiar with the issues. And so oftentimes what happens though is you get a case and you've never heard of anything similar to it. And so you're not stuck on the analytics, you're stuck on, this is like foreign. The whole idea is foreign. And so you're struggling on the wrong thing, and that's just really a familiarity issue. Okay, so you can sort of fix that with marketing. Okay, is that interesting, helpful? Also on the closes. When you close a case, see all these Business Week in particular, they give you data, and they sort of sometimes they tell you what happened and what the company did about it, and so you can sort of practice closing. Okay, so let's see if I find an example. So I'll make one up. So Ameriprise, I think it's Ameriprise. I'm making up a company here. Oh, Citibank. Okay, so Citibank. Let's see. Citibank should enter the medical financing business because it has brand name reach. It has distribution to all the key hospitals because they finance the receivables, so they already have relationships, they have distribution, and it's a growing market at 30% per year, which is higher than the existing lines of business for Citibank. Okay, that's sort of a quick one. But you can literally just sort of go through each one, and as I'm saying it, you can practice drawing it out. You can also start saying it verbally. And again, it's always sort of conclusion, insight, recommendation first, 3 big ideas as to why. So it's just a good way to practice. And if you subscribe, you get it every week. You got 10 new things to practice. It's pretty useful. And so Business Week, I think, is the best one, very consistently the best one. And then next best is probably Portfolio by Condé Nast. They get into a lot of detail. So otherwise, sometimes the articles are too short and there's not enough meat. And then in terms of practicing, you just get a partner. And so this week you read it, next week I'll read it, and I'll sort of make up cases based on here, and I'll have some data, and so that makes it sort of more interesting. All right, last thing on practicing. Practice makes a difference. Okay, I sort of mentioned earlier to a few of you. By the time I had my first live interview, I practiced, it was probably my 30th or 40th case. Okay? And most of the practice was just like this. Like, how would I do this if I was this company, and anytime, going out to dinner, I was a lousy date because I'm sort of always focusing on cases when I was in interview mode. Go out to dinner and like, interesting, the customers are really interested in sushi now for whatever reason. Is there a growth strategy here? Well, okay, first of all, 4 things you need to look at. You look at a customer, you look at the product, you look at the competition, and the company itself. Clearly this company, this restaurant is really good at catering to the young market. The customers seem to be young. Why are they buying, right? And so, I mean, it's pathetic, it's sad, I know. Okay, let's talk about the MBA. So when you practice, this is why it came to mind. When you practice, you sort of want to, when you're partnering with someone to practice the analysis, you want to figure out what conclusion you want that person you're practicing with to end up with. So if I'm pretending to be the interviewer and I'm practicing as the interviewee, I have to decide in advance what the answer is, quote unquote, and then I can make up the rest. Okay? So for the MBA, I'm trying to think of, so the answer is they should do it. Okay? And then I can sort of reverse engineer, make everything else sort of somewhat consistent that would lead people down that road. And I would say, and I would probably further say, I had to make it up, they should do it because it is a much bigger market than the US. I'm thinking, actually weird, I'm thinking of the close I want to hear, right, as the mock interviewer, and then I'm going to make up data around what data I'm going to provide. So maybe it's, as the interviewer, I want to say the MBA should enter China because it's a big market. The advertising portion of the market is growing like 30% per year, which is great. Viewership is growing like 50% per year, and maybe demographically, they're all starting to buy TVs. Okay. Something like that.